everybody. Welcome into our Dog Nation post-game show presented by the UGA Bookstore. My name's Brandon Adams. I'm here live at the field in Jacksonville that I've always called the Gator Bowl, that had been a house of horrors for Georgia for such a number of years. And tonight, in so many ways, what goes down feels like an absolute callback to the worst moments of the 80s and the 90s and the 2000s, in which Georgia seemingly could not find a way to get it done in the series. Ways. What goes another down, example of that, as a big final score of 44-28 here, sees Florida come in and get a win this program desperately needed. Dan Mullen, the win that validates his first 3 years of Florida, they get that tonight. It's a Georgia program left reeling with really very little idea of what it's doing at the quarterback spot in the future. Obviously, the defensive injuries and a number of those on offense also pile up, mount up as well. This was, I'm not going to sugarcoat it, about the worst night for Georgia you could ever have. Certainly, I would say it's the darkest moment of the Kirby Smart era as Smart plays through here into 2020. Terrence Edwards, I'm glad to have you on a night like this because you're obviously a sharp guy. You're a level-headed guy. You played the game. You understand the game. You're not prone to hyperbole the way that maybe that might be from time to time. Terrence, what did you see tonight from Georgia, and how do you pick up the pieces after what was probably the most demoralizing rivalry loss that Smart has had since he's been Georgia coach? What do the Dogs do from here? Where do they go from here?
It's disappointing right now. I know they're disappointed. We're disappointed. And now it's all the goals that they had intact that I spoke about this week is gone now. Now that it's in another opponent's hands for them to reach their goals. It's their fault. I thought Florida just outplayed us tonight. I thought Dan Mullen outcoached us tonight. I give one shining thought. I thought Todd Monken had a really good night calling the offense tonight. Players just didn't execute. And it's very disappointing to see a defensive team. And we didn't have a lot of our key guys there. Not going to make an excuse. But to me, I just saw the communication defensively just wasn't there tonight.
You mentioned Todd Monken, what he does. Before we get into the quarterbacks, which will I'll probably end up dominating a lot of the show the way that it typically does, I guess the one thing some people might say in response to your take on Todd Monken is you have the big Zamir White touchdown run to begin the game. He really ends up averaging about 10 yards a carry. And, for the most part, Georgia does not run the ball very much just didn't run the ball very much today. For some Georgia fans, it's going to appear like Todd Monken abandoned the run, much the same way he was accused of doing that against Alabama. What would you say in response to that, given the fact that some Georgia fans will almost certainly bring that up?
If you take away that 75-yard run, we didn't have very many explosive plays until the end when DeJuan Mathis got in. So they went through a 5-man line, so a 7-man, 8-man box. They're going to force us to throw. That's exactly what I said. I would do if I was the defense coordinator. So I wouldn't say we're abandoning the run, but scheme-wise for Florida dictated that we throw the ball a little bit more. But we was there. The plays was there, and we just didn't take advantage of those opportunities.
Yeah, listen, I agree with you really that, when Florida's stacking the box, even though Georgia's a team that's kind of built itself on running the football, that when your passing game's not effective, when they're stacking the box against you, it becomes just too easy to stop the run when you're not worried about the pass. And ultimately, that's seemingly what happened out here today is that Florida knew it could stack the line of scrimmage, and Georgia at a certain point in time is being overly stubborn if they keep trying to run the football, knowing all those extra bodies are up there at the box. In many cases, it was at least, you mentioned, 5, 6. In one case, may have been even 7 or 8. And there's only so much you can do to try to run the football there. The problem is that Georgia doesn't have the counterpunch of the passing game right now. So therefore, leaning on the run game too much. If you in college football in 2020, if your passing game's not effective, it seems like your running game's probably not going to be effective either.
Correct. Both of them help each other out. If you got a equally running, talented running game, then your passing game you'll be effective. You just look at Florida tonight. A lot of their RPOs came off because they weren't very effective running the football tonight. So we have to be balanced. And, for those Georgia fans say we didn't run the ball and we only got 5 or 6 blocking when they have 7 or 8 in the box. The numbers tell you have to throw the football. And plays was there for us to make down the field in the passing game. It just on the players on offensively, didn't make the plays. And, we always talk about quarterbacks. Let's just put it there. Quarterbacks did not play very well tonight. There was open guys downfield, and they did not get it done.
So, Terrence, before we start taking a bunch of comments, by the way, it's our Dog Nation post-game show. My name's Brandon Adams. Terrence Edwards back in the state of Georgia. We're brought to you tonight by the UGA bookstore. As you head towards the holiday season, obviously Georgia fans love their dogs, and no better way to support your dogs than to get dressed up in some good-looking UGA apparel that comes to you from the UGA bookstore. You can shop 7 days a week in Athens, or you can shop really 24 hours a day online. UGAbookstore.com, the place to go to get a whole lot more of that. So, Terrence, you're the Dog Nation postgame show presented by the UGA bookstore. Before we take a lot of comments from our folks on Facebook and YouTube, give me your thought on the quarterback situation. Stetson Bennett obviously struggled again today. Now, he starts off hot. The Marcus Roseby-Jacksaint touchdown was beautiful. Then Roseby-Jacksaint deals with an injury. Stetson Bennett takes a big shot. The offense was never the same again after that. But clearly he had some struggles. Then Juan Mathis came in. Mathis really couldn't find a spark. Most of his throws were frankly inaccurate. He's also not played very much, so he's still trying to get his feel out there. After what you saw from the quarterback today, where do the Dogs go from here? And at any point in time, does JT Daniels become an option? Because obviously that's the thing on social media that everyone's discussing, is the fact that you've got the former 5-star transfer. He started a year at USC, and yet he is buried on the depth chart here in Georgia by guys right now who are just simply not getting the job done. Mathis in 2 different games, Bennett in the stretch of games in between that. The whole thing, I think, for a lot of Georgia fans, Terrence, just comes across as incredibly weird.
It is, and I was thinking about this earlier. I've watched JT Daniels in high school. I watched him in college, and he was rated a 5-star for a reason. He must be bad and can't beat these guys out, or he's hurt. One of the two, because it has to be an open competition coming up. I mean, we cannot go 9 for 29 in this type of game with 112 yards and think we're going to beat anybody, think we're going to go anywhere. So it has to be a competition. We have to get better quarterback play. We cannot put this any other way. The quarterbacks did not play well tonight. We got to get back. Quarterbacks got to just take it up on the chin and look at their mistakes. But I want to see JT Daniels get in. If he can't do it, then okay, our quarterback room is not good. But they didn't play well at all. Either one of the quarterbacks played well at all tonight.
All right, let me get a bunch of comments here on Facebook and YouTube. Listen, y'all know this. I do Dog Nation Daily every day. I talk about the pride that I take in being a Gator hater. Obviously, this night is so disappointing for me. Obviously, I'm just at my wits' end about the way that Georgia played. I can't sugarcoat that. I'm going to let you vent. Anything is on the table here for Georgia. You know, there's obviously injuries, but I don't think that's an excuse for the number of wheel route plays, the mismatches that Florida running backs were able to get on wide receivers today. You know, the Georgia quarterback situation is what it is. Something that didn't start getting bad tonight, something that's regressed over the course of a couple of years, and those chickens probably came home to roost a little bit tonight. So I'm obviously very, very disappointed. But I'll do my job here this evening, and I'll give folks a chance to vent. I'm glad I got Terrence Edwards and his sharp analysis back in the state of Georgia to help us out with a lot of this. Let's do YouTube first. We'll do Facebook after that, and we'll just let it all hang out here tonight. Ryan M. says it's on Kirby that we either can't recruit or develop quarterbacks properly. Terrence, I don't disagree with that. I mean, Kirby Smart is a great coach. He's had great success at Georgia, and nothing can change that. I think that's obviously pretty clear. But this deficiency belongs to him. And whether it's Justin Fields transferring out, Jamie Newman opting out, you know, Jake Fromm choosing to leave after his junior season when I think a lot of folks have told him that his draft status was far from secure. You know, Kirby Smart does own all of that. You break it, you buy it. This quarterback situation has become broken under Smart's watch. I do think it's his job to fix it. And frankly, some of the ways in which Smart has talked about this quarterback situation, I do think diminishes the confidence that a lot of Georgia fans have in his ability to get this done. Fairly or unfairly, Smart has a tendency to kind of drone on in kind of a monotone voice, business as usual, when pretty clearly folks have watched this position and if maybe even the entirety of the program regress before our very eyes. This was a team in Florida that Georgia was blowing out just a couple of years ago, still winning against last year, and tonight they were totally outclassed and ran off the field by the Florida Gators. and deficient quarterback play is a huge reason why. I agree with the commenter on this, Terrence. That is Kirby Smart's responsibility.
He is. He's the head guy. He's the head football coach. So everything falls on his shoulders. And I wouldn't say he has a hard time recruiting quarterbacks. I'd say he just have a hard time right now as developing quarterbacks into the quarterbacks that we see like Kyle Trask tonight. I mean, he's got 3 to 4 5-star quarterbacks while he's been the head coach, but we have not seen 5-star production since they've been here right now. We have to get 5-star production if we're going to continue to recruit 5-star quarterbacks.
You know, Marcos Burgos in our YouTube comment section says that Kirby can help, first of all, on offense by staying out of the way. Terrence, as you know, in previous years, maybe this was a criticism that stuck to Georgia a little bit. In 2018, maybe sometimes even in 2017, not letting Jim Chaney do everything that he would have liked to have done. In 2019, maybe overseeing the offense, not giving freedom and autonomy to a James Coley. But I haven't heard anyone say that's still going on this year. My assumption is that it's probably not. There's certainly no evidence that it is. Todd Monken's a guy that would have had some credentials and some choices of where he wanted to work. The idea that he would choose to come and work at Georgia and be handcuffed by Kirby Smart to maintain a philosophy that maybe Monken doesn't adhere to, I don't necessarily think that's true. Listen, I know for a fact that Georgia's got very significant offensive problems, but a meddling head coach in 2020, Terrence, I'm actually not so sure that's still quite as big of a story as it might have been in the past. I don't get the indication that Smart's meddling in this offense. I just get the indication that the offense, whoever's in charge right now, is just simply not keeping pace with the most explosive teams in the SEC.
I agree. I don't think Todd Monken would have came to Georgia with Kirby Smart looking over his shoulder. I think that was probably one of the questions that he asked, do I have true autonomy in this offense? And I'm sure Kirby told him yes. My issue is right now, I thought Todd Monken have called a great season this year. I think he's done a wonderful job. But the play calling to me looks like it's a little handcuffed because of the quarterback situation, not handcuffed because of Kirby Smart. I think when, his offense has been at its best when he was at Oklahoma State, where he had veteran seasoned quarterbacks to go along to take him to this offense to this level so he can unleash all the things that he want to do. And I don't think he has the full trust in the quarterbacks right now to unleash everything that he would like to do offensively. I don't think Kirby has anything to do with that. I think it's the players that we have at that position.
I think it's probably true and well said by Terrence Edwards there. It is our Dog Nation post-game show presented by the UGA Bookstore. Let's get some more comments here on YouTube. Don't go back to Facebook after that. They're coming in fast and furious here tonight, as you might imagine. Travis Joyner says Kirby needs to stay on the defensive side. Here's the problem, Terrence. And listen, I hate to be the one that piles on after a loss. That's kind of tacky in some respects. But one of the big stories tonight is not just Georgia and its offensive issues. Clearly, they couldn't keep pace with the Florida offense. But listen, apart from injuries and everything else was going on here, Terrence, I think there's a case to be made that Dan Mullen greatly outcoached Kirby Smart, found an opportunity to exploit the Georgia defense, and even with the injuries, I don't think the injuries fully explain all that away. So for people who say, hey, Kirby needs to stay on defense, listen, when you tell the full story of tonight's game, part of the story is, once again, against a high-powered offense, that offense against Kirby Smart's defense got whatever it wanted. Kirby's defensive reputation has taken a bit of a ding the last few weeks, getting totally exploited by Steve Sarkisian in Alabama, getting completely exploited by Dan Mullen in Florida here tonight. This is still a good coach, and frankly, this is still a defense that's going to have some good days ahead of it. But, it's been a while since we've seen this defense stop an elite offense. LSU last year in the SEC championship game, where they scored 37 points, that kind of comes to mind. Giving up 38 to 9.5. Some of why Georgia lost tonight is because of a deficient Georgia game plan deficiency, even with the injuries in which they were dealing with.
I agree. I mean, if you look at it, I think Dan Mullen had a great offensive plan tonight to attack this man coverage defense that we want to run tonight. And I'm gonna take it back a little bit. I think having Richard not there in the back end hurt a lot. If you watch, man, the communication was terrible tonight. You saw some guys playing zone, some guys playing man. It was bad tonight that they were so off tonight that I've never seen a Kirby Smart defense that looked lost as they did tonight. And Dan Mullen had a great job. I mean, he ran probably 10 wheel routes out the backfield with the backs, and he saw that on tape and he exploited it. It doesn't look like we made adjustments to counter that until the end. I just think Dan Mullen had a great game plan tonight, and we didn't play our best, but I also think coaching defensively tonight was worse than I've seen it since Kirby has been there.
Let me ask you this, as a fan, it seems like every wheel route I've ever seen any team run works. I've never seen it stop. But as a coach yourself, and folks should know that in addition to being, a analyst and a former player, you've been a very successful coach for a while. What is the coaching point for how you stop the wheel route? Is it just keeping the eyes on the running back that might be coming out of the backfield and not losing him there? From a coaching standpoint, what is the simplest way to explain to me, a non-coach, non-former player, what's the simplest way that a defense is supposed to do a better job of stopping that? Because it seemed like whether it be Jermaine Johnson or Monty Rice or, at one point in time it's even Jacoby Dean, who other than that I think had a pretty good game, the Georgia linebackers just seem to be out of position against that over and over again. How does that get coached up to prevent that from happening?
Well, it's tough for Jermaine Johnson and Aziz to try to cover a wheel route because they're stand-up outside linebackers. So once the back escapes the backfield and does the wheel, there's not too many outside linebackers that could cover a wheel route. So let's take Jacoby Dean and Monty Rice. They're 5 to 6 yards back in the backfield. They cannot attack that low shoulder. They have to attack the high shoulder to keep that running back. If he catches a flat route, we'll attack him for 5 yards, but we cannot allow him to turn up. I think the linebackers was attacking the wrong shoulder, and that allowed the running backs to get upfield. And Trask he threw some incredible balls on those wheel routes, and that's what makes a great quarterback. He have to make those plays, and he did. And our quarterback, when we had open receivers, didn't make those plays.
John Shaw mentioned the number of injuries that Georgia suffered today, and Terrence, as I said before, the last thing I'm going to do is use those as an excuse for why Georgia lost this game. I think that'd be unfair, but it was a huge number, and obviously for Marcus Rosemy-Jacksain, who gets a start in today's game because George Pickens isn't here, gets a chance to score a touchdown, and on that play suffers one of the most gruesome injuries I've ever seen. You're obviously a wide receiver, so I think you probably have a special sense of what that meant for him. It was just a really bad day for Georgia. The injuries were certainly a part of the story. I don't know that, and listen, leaving Jacksonville this way was a familiar feeling for me for a number of years, but it's been a long time since I've walked out of a stadium in which Georgia played a game really just feeling as demoralized and so hard pressed to find any positives as it is today. I just am about as deflated as you can possibly be. This just stinks up one side and down the other. And as the commenter John mentioned, the injuries, particularly the one to Rosemy-Jacksain, are a big part of that too. It's just a sad day.
Yeah, it is. I mean, there's not really a lot that you could take away from this game. I mean, this is one of the games where the coaches just trash this film and don't even look at it because I don't know if there's any high points you could take away from this game. I don't think the players played well. I don't think the coaches coached well. I think it was just a total team loss tonight. This is one of the in 3 to 4 years that I've never seen our team look this bad. Like I say, offensively, I thought Todd Monken did a great job calling the game. That first play, he schemed up to go 75 yards, and he schemed plays that, I mean, if you look at it from TV copy, there was a lot of open receivers downfield. That's what you can do as a play caller, as an offensive coach, put your players in position, and the players have to make the plays. At the end of the day, it's the players on the field making plays and the coach is coaching.
Alan McGovern on our Facebook comment section asked an interesting question. He says, well, the SEC has now become such a passing league, and obviously with Florida and Alabama both averaging more than 42 points a game, this has clearly become a passing league at the top end. He says, why not just play with 6 defensive backs all the time? I think the problem with that, Terrence, and I referenced last year's SEC championship game as a for instance on this, when you do have the 6, whereas Georgia played against LSU a good bit last year, 7 defensive backs, what you run the risk of is no pass rush whatsoever because you're taking outside linebackers off the field to put those extra defensive backs in the game. And at times tonight, that was certainly the example of this. There were a couple of times where Georgia seemed to have pressure, and I'll give Kyle Trask credit. He did a good job of eluding that pressure. Trask has become a better quarterback. I mocked him, and I've got so much medicine to take for some of the ways in which I've mocked, both Trask and Mullen both, and I guess I'm here to deal with all of it. I'm certainly not going to run from it. But Trask has clearly proven himself to be a better quarterback. But to go back to the commenter's point, I think that's part of the issue is, Terrence, when Georgia faces these high-powered passing attacks, they're right now not getting the pass pressure required to slow them down. And this has been a Georgia team that has been better at sacking the quarterback thus far this year. They have been in previous years, but it did not show up against a good Alabama offensive line. And tonight, for whatever reason, a Florida offensive line that really coming into the game had not been nearly as good doesn't show up tonight either. This Georgia pass rush totally disappears in the biggest moments. I know that this was a day in which the Georgia cornerbacks got torched, and frankly, they really did. But some of that is related to the fact that Georgia just wasn't making life very difficult for Kyle Trask, in the backfield.
Yes, I mean, you can have Champ Bailey and Deion Sanders out there on the island. At some point, the D-line has to cover up for some of that deficiency that you lacked in the back end tonight. You have to get pressure. The best coverage is your best rush, and we did not get to them tonight. I didn't think we blitzed a lot tonight. I think we tried to get there just with the front four and play coverage and play man, and clearly that didn't work. Once we did get into our blitz package in the second half, we made it a little uncomfortable for him. He wasn't sitting back there in the pocket clean and just picking us apart. So game plan wise, it just seemed like they was just going to try to get to Trask with four and try to play coverage and play man. And Dan Mullen did a great job at exploiting the wheel routes. And I don't think Tyson Campbell had a really good day today. He got beat on 2 touchdowns and he was there, but the Kyle Pitts and Trayvon Grimes made great catches. So Eric Stokes, I give him props. He had a really good game tonight. So defensive wise, he held his own, but overall team effort was not there tonight.
Yeah, listen, I'm a big Tyson Campbell fan, and a part of the game that for me can be pretty dejecting is Campbell's one of the biggest recruiting wins that Georgia's had. And listen, Tyson Campbell's still a good player even after having a bad game tonight. But Terrence, at a certain point, you're like, well, if Campbell is having a hard time covering these guys on one-on-one, there's not a better caliber of recruit to go out and get to replace him with. And at a certain point in time, it does seem to come down to coaching. And I said this going into this game, Terrence, and I'm not going to run away from this comment, that the narrative coming into the game was, hey, Kirby Smart just gets better players than Dan Mullen does. What Florida fans wanted to say is, hey, Dan Mullen may get lesser recruits, but he finds a way to coach those guys up. Unfortunately, if you're a Florida fan and you want to point to that as being true, tonight's game really does stand as evidence of that a lot of 5-stars for Georgia did not have 5-star nights, and lesser recruits for Florida, guys they had to go to the transfer market and grab and things like that. They really did get the best of Georgia here this evening. This was an example of coaching kind of mattering more than talent acquisition. Recruiting still is a big deal, and Georgia's got some recruiting holes to fill for this class of 2021. But tonight was the night where you say, hey, you can't recruit better than you have, but you do have to find a way to develop these guys, coach them up better so they have a chance to go out and win, because they were totally outclassed by Florida, unfortunately, this evening.
Exactly. We was totally outclassed on all 3 areas of the game tonight. Florida did a great job of scheming us, especially offensively, to, like I keep talking about, the wheel routes that they could continuously throw onto the running backs, and putting Kyle Pitts in one-on-one situations, putting Grimes in one-on-one situations. And Kyle Trask just made the throws and gave his receivers an opportunity to make a throw. That's what big-time quarterbacks does. And right now, I just don't know where we go with the quarterback position right now. I think it should be an open competition to whoever wins, whoever has the best week right now, because tonight was not our best. It was not good for them right now. 9 for 23 is not going to get it done against this type of offense.
James, watching us on Facebook, says it's really the number one issue facing this program, and I do agree with that, Terrence. As we think about a year from now, the pain of having to live with this Florida loss for that long and, returning back to this venue again next year, between now and then, the most important issue is, can Georgia find the elite quarterback play that Florida's gotten from Kyle Trask, that Alabama's gotten from Mac Jones? These were not players who were, to go back to recruiting here, Mac Jones was, a very lowly rated recruit, came in the same signing class as Tua Tagovailoa. As has been famously pointed out, Kyle Trask didn't even start for his high school team. And yet both these quarterbacks are playing at an elite level right now here in the SEC. Over the course of the next 365 days and leading into the start of next season ahead of that, I do agree with James. The other commenters were saying this. The only issue that really matters for Georgia right now is, can they find the same level of quarterback play? Because if they can't, it doesn't really matter what they have at other positions. Running backs are going to be, held in check. Defense is going to get exploited by more powerful offenses. This has become a league a lot like the NFL, where that quarterback play really matters. And, I thought that Georgia had some opportunities to exploit some weaknesses for Florida that might minimize Stetson Bennett's impact on this game. Unfortunately, Florida just was a stronger team in those areas than I anticipated them being. It's just a fact. Sometimes it happens that way. And it did put the emphasis on the quarterback spot, and that right now is not a place that Georgia can find itself.
Exactly. I just think it's got a text from one of my best friends, Damian Garrett. He just said, how is Georgia, this pristine university, having quarterback problems right now? And that was a great point. Like, we're in a situation where nothing against Stetson Bennett. No, he was a former walk-on for a reason. It's been a great fairy tale story for him right now, but he was a walk-on for a reason. And I know Jamie Newman opted out, but we have had the quarterbacks there, and if this is the best that we could do, then we're in trouble right now. We're going to have to get in the transfer portal next year again, away on Brock Vandegrift to come in, and we go out with another true freshman. But we have to get better play from that position. No ifs, ands, buts about. I don't care how good of a defense we have. You're going to have to be able to scare teams offensively.
It's our Dog Nation post-game show presented by the UGA Bookstore. Make sure you check them out online, UGAbookstore.com. You got folks you want to buy for the holiday season. All the famous brands, Nike, Vineyard Vines, Tommy Bahama, the UGA 10 line from Peter Millar, all of those famous apparel makers that make good-looking UGA gear. The UGA Bookstore is the best place to go get it all, so make sure you check it out. Whether you're in Athens, they're open 7 days a week, or you can shop online, UGAbookstore.com. They will really get you outfitted and get you looking good as we head towards the rest of the season. And by the way, speaking of that, Terrence, Jason Glossier mentions the fact that for the first time since prior to the 2017 season, Georgia now will play the rest of November with very little chance of making the SEC championship game. The idea of being in a New Year's Six Bowl, something that Georgia has been in over the course of the last 3 straight years of playing in New Year's Six Bowls, including the College Football Playoff in 2017. All of a sudden now the goals, as you mentioned before, it's now a lesser standard. It's now a lesser level of achievement. If you're a Georgia player, how do you stay focused in this, especially given the fact that it's not, 80,000 people here in Jacksonville, the Gator Bowl Stadium. It's not a normal year. Do you worry that now maintaining the focus required just to show yourself well the rest of the season? Do you worry that's going to be a difficult thing for these Georgia players to find now?
Now, for the younger guys, it's going to be added incentive because you're going to be back next year. But for some of the older guys that may be draft eligible, you got to get their focus up. You can't get them worried about now what my draft status is going to be. We're not playing for anything. They got to focus on Georgia football. They came in, they got to represent that G. Like, we got to continuously go out and end on a good note. This is a bad taste in their mouth. If you got any competitive bone in your spirit, you're going to go out and put your best foot forward for the rest of the season. I don't care about the bowl game if any of those guys skip the bowl game, but you got to go out and just finish your college career for this regular season on a strong foot. Just continue to let these young guys see that there's no quitters in this Georgia program, man. You don't want those young guys to go ahead and see, I'm going to do the exact same thing once it's my turn. No, set a standard. Coach Smart and them have a standard for these guys, and we have to continue that standard.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. Let me get some more comments on YouTube here. A lot of folks kind of weighing in. Caden Smith says the Georgia media needs to ask Kirby Smart the real questions, no sugarcoating them. If Kirby keeps putting offensive and quarterback play like this in the field, he's going to lose his job. Well, obviously, it's important to keep in mind the success that Kirby Smart has had. But as far as asking the tough questions to Smart, Terrence, there's been no shortage of tough questions. He's been asked directly about Juwan Mathis, about JT Daniels. The issues on the minds of Georgia fans, those questions have been directed to Kirby. My guess is they'll be directed to him again tonight in the post-game press conference. I haven't heard anything from that yet, but my guess is they'll be directed to him again on that. The issue here is not that Kirby Smart's not being asked. And really the issue isn't that Kirby Smart's ducking the question. He is telling people what they don't want to hear. And he's either lying, he's either incapable of making a quality evaluation, or it happens to be the truth. And for the people who expect JT Daniels to ride in on a white horse and save this season, it must just not going to happen. And not because Kirby Smart's stubborn, and not because Kirby Smart doesn't know what he's doing. Maybe it's Kirby Smart's fault that they're in this predicament. I'll certainly grant you that. But the notion that somehow Smart's personality is what's keeping JT Daniels on the bench, at a certain point in time when the same thing comes up every single day and the same answer keeps being given by the head coach, Terrence, at a certain point in time, should you at least consider the idea that he might be telling the truth?
I agree. I mean, I've heard Coach Smart say this plenty of times that uh, Stetson Bennett gives us the best chance to win. So is that an indictment on JT Daniels? Is he's not the guy that we think he is, or Kirby is just sticking with Stetson because of whatever reasons? I tend to believe that he believes that Stetson gives us the best chance, and that says a lot about the other guys in our room.
James Manning, a lot of folks on YouTube giving me grief because obviously I made a big deal about Gator Hater Update and everything like that. Listen, I deserve that. You guys can give me grief for that all you want. I'm a big boy. It ain't going to hurt my feelings none. So you want to get on here on Facebook and YouTube, make fun of me. You want to hit me up on Twitter at Dog Nation Daily. I'll take everything you got. I'm not going to lose a minute of sleep worrying about what some simp Florida fan thinks about me after all of this. So give me your best. I ain't a bit worried about that. Let's do a couple more here for a moment. Montez Cole on YouTube says you have to develop a quarterback who will take its lumps, but a quarterback that you can grow if you allow him to play. He says Brock Vandergrift, actually maybe he's talking about, he says needs to take our lumps for a year. I believe he has the tools. Yeah, so maybe so. Maybe Brock Vandergrift does step in 2021. Georgia gets a chance to grow with him. But here's part of the problem, Terrence, is when you look at other programs, Alabama made a successful transition from Tua Tagovailoa to Mac Jones. Clemson tonight, I have no idea what the score is, but they're playing Notre Dame tonight. DJ Uiagalelei is going to start that game because Trevor Lawrence has had the coronavirus. They seem poised to make a quarterback transition next year to him, assuming that Lawrence moves on to the NFL. And oh, yeah, by the way, that's the team in which Georgia will open the 2021 season. It's not only teams that have good quarterbacks now, but they seem the very best programs in America seem to be effective at making that transition to another successful quarterback after that. Georgia is just kind of lost in that. And a lot of folks don't like to hear this. People don't like to dig this back up. But when you have Justin Fields transfer out of the program, when you have Jake Fromm leave after his junior season, when you bring in Jamie Newman and he opts out before the year, there's going to be some collateral damage associated with that. The reason why Georgia doesn't have a quarterback right now is because they've had three, what appeared to be pretty good ones, choose to leave the program. You're feeling the effects of that right now.
Yeah, you are most definitely. I mean, with Jake Fromm and Jamie, those guys have played a lot of college football. I mean, let's just take a step back and look at the quarterbacks you have with Stetson Bennett and DeJuan Mathis. DeJuan Mathis coming off that brain injury and hasn't played a lot of football. So with him coming out of camp as the starter tells you a lot about that quarterback room. Jamie Newman hurt, and I was one of those on his tail. I was one of those guys that was ready to see him play, big, strong quarterback, and that hurt going into this season. That really hurt. So those guys just got to play better. They got to get back, and it got to be an open competition. We just can't go in and say Stetson is going to be the guy for the rest of the season. We got to we got to open it up. We got to see what other guys can do in real life action.
All right, I agree with what you're saying there. Let me get some quotes here from Kirby Smart. Smart says that Stetson Bennett sustained a separated shoulder during the game. It came on the touchdown pass to Marcus Rosemy-Jackson. Not a surprise there. Kirby's saying, I thought that Stetson did some good things early. When he came back, he was timid with the ball, did not have good accuracy, so we went with DeJuan. Kirby says we had calls. We call where we covered them. This is on the Florida offense, and they beat us. I can live with those. We tried to pressure the quarterback, but I cannot live with leaving a guy wide open on a wheel route. Well, he's going to have a hard time sleeping tonight because that happened over and over again. Kirby Smart asked why it was DeJuan Mathis as opposed to JT Daniels. Smart says DeJuan is our second quarterback. Kirby Smart, another quote from him saying, I'm not going to say the sky is falling and everything is coming down. We need to play better and get our players to play better. I'll give you some more quotes in a moment. On that last point, here's the problem, Terrence. Listen, you're a UGA alumnus. I'm a huge Georgia fan. I mean, it's fair to say that when you're year over year back in the same spot, a win last season that clinched the SEC East, this year a loss in demoralizing fashion, really embarrassing fashion, that for the most part, it's going to prohibit that from happening, going back to Atlanta for the SEC championship game. I mean, listen, this is program regression. Now, that doesn't mean it has to stay that way forever, but the sky's falling. You can use that phrase if you want to, but the program has regressed year over year. And I do think that Kirby Smart, as good a coach as he is and as successful as he's been for Georgia, Terrence, I do think he needs to answer for that.
Yes, most definitely. When you're the head guy, everything falls on your shoulders. You are control of everything that happens in this program. So I personally just think that, with the quarterback, we have to be better at that position. Coach Smart and Coach Monk and them have to be better. And he's right for a sense. The players have to play better too. Coaches put them in position to succeed. Stetson and DeJuan and the receivers have to catch the ball. I tell people all the time, man, in this game, Coach Rick called a great play. I dropped the pass. That had nothing to do with Mark Rick. And sometimes we overanalyze the coaches where the players have to take some of the accountability as well. We had guys open. We dropped some passes tonight. The quarterback didn't put the ball in the right spot to make plays. That's on the players. Players are accountable as well.
Yeah, I think that's really good. By the way, there's some conflicting reports about what the injury situation may have been from Stetson Bennett. So let me backtrack on that just a little bit. A couple more points from Smart in the post-game press conference. He says, I cannot wish myself into an explosive offense. We have to work ourselves into that. I would suggest that what you really have to do is scheme yourself into that, and you're either capable of doing that or you're not. And thus far, the evidence that Kirby Smart and this current coaching staff is capable of doing that, the jury is still very much out on that. And I think you just have to be fair to say that. One more on JT Daniels, Terrence. He says, right now, this is Kirby Smart's quote, right now we feel like Stetson and DeJuan give us a better shot because they have a better body of work. That is not Kirby Smart saying JT Daniels is still too hurt to play or anything like that. That is another example. There have been a few of these as of late where Smart has said, I am choosing to play DeJuan tonight, choosing to play Stetson Bennett in the other games. I'm choosing to play these guys instead of JT Daniels. I think if you're a fan, you have to really try to decide what are you going to do with that. At a certain point, it seems like you got to take Smart at his word, though.
You do. Man, that says a lot, BA. If Kirby saying, I mean, they get to watch these guys over and over every day at practice. And that's an indictment in my mind that JT Daniels is not better than DeJuan Mathis or Stetson Bennett. That's exactly what that quote says to me.
Yeah, I think you're probably pretty right about that. All right. Hey, we're going to take more of your comments here on both Facebook and YouTube. Let me give a quick shout out before we do, though. Incredible run to start the game for Zamir White. Beautiful touchdown to begin the game. We're going to make that our Marco's Pizza moment of the game. Unfortunately for Georgia, it wasn't very good after that. I certainly won't sugarcoat it and say otherwise. But for Zamir, who's been maligned this year a little bit, I think unfairly by some folks in the media, maybe the occasional Georgia fan as well, over 100 yards last week, 100 yards again tonight. The big touchdown run, a major part of that. It was a beautifully well-designed play by Georgia. Unfortunately, not nearly enough of that after the big Zamir run, but it's good enough to be our Marco's Pizza moment of the game. Congratulations for Zamir on that. And by the way, folks, check out Marco's Pizza here this weekend. You want to feel better watching some football on Sunday or just hanging around with your family, whatever else. Marco's can do that for you because it's real, authentic pizza made the Italian way. It comes at a great price as well. Specialty pizzas, lots of different specials they have. You can check them out on the Marco's app or marcos.com and really find out a whole lot more about that. All right, Facebook and YouTube, we're going to kind of roll through one more big kind of cluster of comments here, and it is a cluster tonight for sure. And then we'll wrap it up after that. James Crump not having the quarterback play, yeah, no doubt. Wesley Allen wants DeJuan Mathis to get more reps. I'm fine with whatever. They can play Mathis. They can play Bennett. They can play – at this point in time, I really don't care. Whoever they play is going to play better. The idea that some people are still going to be in a corner about DeJuan Mathis or Stetson Bennett as to who the best for Georgia is, if that's what you're obsessing over right now, your eye's not on the ball because neither guy has really played worth the slip, certainly tonight. And the early going for DeJuan Mathis wasn't particularly good either, just to be completely honest. But play who you want to play. That's fine. So let me get this from you, Terrence, if you don't mind. Jesse Lawson brings this up. You know, if you're JT Daniels, you were the starter at USC. Now, admittedly, that season did not go particularly well for him. He had mixed results statistically speaking, but he was the starter for a Power 5 school, and now he's only third string at Georgia in a year when the quarterback is not playing well. I'm imagining, from your perspective as a former player, it must be weird for Daniels to find himself in this spot, and I'd forgive him if a little frustration was starting to grow around him because of that.
Oh, most definitely. When you're a starter at one program, he didn't come here to back up anybody. He came here because I'm sure he said he was going to give a legitimate chance to be the starting quarterback at Georgia. And I know he's coming off the knee injury. I know he wasn't cleared for contact early in camp, but this has to be frustrating for him, knowing that in his mind, he thinks he could go out and play better and not give him that opportunity. I don't know how many reps he gets with the first or second team because he's been down with the scout team. So it's frustrating for me because I believe in the guy from what I saw talent-wise from as a high schooler and at SC. I saw some good things, and he's played a lot of college football. So I just thought that kind of gave him an inside track to play because he has took significant amount of snaps in the college football, more than the current guys that are playing. And he's not getting the opportunity right now. That's very frustrating. And like I said, if he's not better than the two guys in front of him, then we in a world of trouble.
Travis Joyner brings this up. Clemson puts in a freshman quarterback and is explosive, but inexperienced Daniels is questionable for us. Those numbers don't add up, Kirby. Yeah, listen, this is one of those things. The reason why we do shows like this is because the fan, the guy that's not a former player or media professional, you deserve a voice to speak about these kinds of things. And I totally get that people are frustrated by that. How could it be that JT Daniels isn't worthy of playing at all? The reason why we have shows like this is for comments like that, because at a certain point, people kind of want to know what in the world's going on. It was the hottest topic on Twitter during the game. Certainly appreciate that. And as Terrence, the commenter, mentioned, when you make the comparison to Clemson and how good they are with two different quarterbacks, it almost seems like an embarrassment of riches for Georgia, who can't even seem to find any quarterback play really from anybody.
Exactly. But a lot of people got to also realize styles matter. So Justin Fields left and went to Ohio State. He went to an offense that perfectly fit his skill set. With Kirby and company, they have changed the offense to fit his skill set. Clemson offense has a skill set that DJ and Trevor fits to a T. So styles matter. And right now we have to find a guy that they can fit into the style of quarterback play that Todd Monken will. He just didn't not become overnight a bad OC. He's had success on the NFL level and the college level. Right now, it's the trigger guy. You have to find a guy that is comfortable making these throws. There was throws tonight that we just missed. And if you're a big-time quarterback, you make those throws. Kyle Trask made those throws tonight.
Marty Thompson says, remember, guys, Florida's had a bad defense. We look completely lost. I mean, it is true. That's the other kind of demoralizing part about this, and I'm sorry, I just don't have much of a silver lining to give people tonight. Terrence, this Florida defense had been awful. Now, maybe the layoff when they had 7,000 coronavirus cases, maybe that was what they needed to reboot. They played better defensively against Missouri. I had folks who were at that game tell me they thought the Florida defense had improved. But that's what's, I think, doubly frustrating about tonight's game was this is the Florida defense that really hasn't stopped anyone, and Georgia was struggling to get anything that it could. I think, Terrence, unfortunately, that gives you an idea of just how low things have sank for this Georgia offense right now.
I think so, but I'm going to go to a different approach. Yes, their defense have not been playing very well at all, but there was plays out there to be made. The players did not make the play to move the ball. We were open all night receiver-wise. People are going to go in and say, well, the receiver's not getting open. The tight end's not getting open. If you broad your scope and take back a little of this anger, those guys was open. We did not hit those guys in stride. We did not hit those guys at all. We had open guys streaking down the field. Florida made their plays. Georgia didn't.
Yeah, I think that's beautifully said. And Terrence is one of the reasons why we love having the show, because you're good at delivering the information just like that. A couple more minutes here, we're going to wrap up, and I'm going to go home and cry in my pillow. It's the Dog Nation post-game show presented by the UGA Bookstore, UGAbookstore.com. They're open 7 days a week, 365 days a year online, but also 7 days a week in person in Athens. It's right there next to the stadium. It's a fun spot to go and just shop around and get suited up and dressed up, or for that tough-to-buy-for person in your holiday gift list, UGA Bookstore is a good choice there. And at some point in time, Georgia's going to have a home game again a couple of weeks from now. They'll have big autograph signings going on at the UGA Bookstore, too. Brian Mullis, I'm going to read this comment because it's true. He says, I'm still ticked off watching Justin Fields at Ohio State, knowing we had him here. Terrence, people don't like when this topic comes up because it is a sore subject, but it is true. Justin Fields is a great player. Justin Fields would have solved every single issue that Georgia's currently facing right now. The fact that he came and he left. And, there's probably plenty of blame to go around for how all of this, played out. But it'll always be a really horrible footnote to this, the fact that Georgia's struggling at quarterback so much and maybe had the second best quarterback, if not the best quarterback in the country on the roster, but never really got a chance to use it.
I think so. And I have this argument all the time. I'm a Justin Fields fan. Before he came to Georgia, I've met him a few times. He's an awesome kid. And I just backed Kirby into that. When and what game Justin Fields' true freshman year that you insert him as the starting quarterback? That's my whole point of that. When would you insert? I personally think if Justin would have stayed his sophomore year, he would have took the reins from Jake Fromm. That's just my personal opinion. But somebody tell me, people always say after the LSU game, but in the SEC championship game, Jake threw for 300 yards, and it wasn't his fault. I don't think there was a great opportunity to insert Justin Fields as the starter his freshman year. Yes, I personally think he would have took the reins over like Tua did from Jalen Hurts as a sophomore if he would have stayed at Georgia.
Yeah, and listen, I think that's smart. I mean, I guess maybe there is a case that he should have played during the LSU game. The fact of the matter is, against Florida in 2018, Jake Fromm had one of his better games. And as you said, Fromm gave Georgia a chance to win the 2018 SEC championship game as well. But one of the worst games of the Smart era was that LSU game when Georgia was doing nothing offensively. It seems like if you're trying to have a fair competition, giving Fields a chance to show what he was capable of in that LSU game, at a certain point, this is all in the past. But that would be my one response to that is, Terrence, maybe you give him a shot in that LSU game that year to see if he could have provided him a spark in the second half.
I agree. That's the game that we could have inserted Justin, but that's tough going into Baton Rouge with a true freshman at that stage. And for whatever reason, they didn't put him in. But I just believe Justin, there wasn't a game to insert him as a starter Justin's true freshman year. I personally believe Justin would have beat him out as a true sophomore to lead us to last year, and he'd have been with us this year. But Justin's not walking through that door right now. He's in Ohio State doing well. We are Georgia Bulldogs. We got to have a better quarterback play. We got to have a better person at that position to make these throws. That's point blank and simple.
So let me ask you this then, given the fact that there's only so much you can do to change that right now, how much of the remaining season, understanding that you've got seniors who've laid their lives on the line for this program, everything like that, how much about this should be about finding out what you have in other quarterbacks, maybe even JT Daniels at a certain point, to be a part of a competition with Brock Vandagriff next year? And I don't think Vandagriff changed his mind about coming to Georgia. Vandagriff's an Athens kid. Being close to home is something he said it was important to him. I think probably Georgia's pretty lucky there is a five-star quarterback who has grown up so close to the Athens campus. Otherwise, they might be in a world of hurt for the class of 2021 if it wasn't the case for that right now. But, how much of this should be about finding out about the other quarterbacks on the roster the rest of the way? Can you look your upperclassmen in the eye and say, we're partially playing for next year here in the remainder of the 2020 season? How much of that can you really do?
Yeah, I don't think you could do much of that. I think you got to go in and with the mindset that you got to finish this season out strong with these seniors. These seniors want to go out on a high. They've put their blood, sweat, and tears to a couple of SEC championship games, a playoff appearance. So you got to have these guys like Richard and that crew go out on a high note. You can't go experimenting with guys for next season because our goals are not intact anymore. So you got to continue to play the best players, and we got to find the best player at quarterback. We're not there day in and day out, so we could go out and argue about who's the best quarterback, but we got to be honest with ourselves. Coach Smart got to be honest. Georgia staff got to be honest. Which quarterback gives us the best chance? And if Stetson is that guy, I can live with that, but we're going to have to see what Brock and company can do in the spring and get ready for next season.
Terrence, I think that's really well said. Do you have a final thought before we wrap up here today? Because this is obviously not a good game for Georgia. Anything you can do to make us feel better here?
I can't. I tweeted right before that I got a lot to say, and this is the first game that I just think the Georgia staff got out-coached tonight from all three phases. Really got out-coached, and we have lost games on the Kirby, but I never say that we totally have got out-coached tonight. So I think we got out-coached, and give credit to Dan Mullins and his staff. They did a great job offensively. They scored 35 points in the first half against the defense that Kirby Smart put on the field. Guess what? The sun is going to rise tomorrow. We have another game coming up next week. That's the beauty about playing college football or in a football period. Until the last game of the season, we still got 3-4 more games guaranteed in this season. So let's just continue to let's stay apart, guys. We can't fall apart. We got to root these guys on. We got to stay behind Kirby. We got to stay behind his staff, and these players need us right now.
Terrence, that's really wonderful. I appreciate you saying that. We'll finish with that here tonight. That's part of our Dog Nation post-game show presented by the UGA Bookstore. Terrence, I look forward to speaking to you next week. Hopefully it's under happier circumstances, and for all of our audience for being here this evening. Listen, as Terrence said, there will be happier days, but this is obviously not one of those. Y'all find somebody, hug them tight tonight, and enjoy what you can of the weekend. And we'll talk to you Monday back here again on Dog Nation for a whole lot more from where Georgia goes from here. Thank you for being tonight a part of our Dog Nation post-game show presented by the UGA Bookstore, and we'll say goodbye here from Jacksonville.